This video is all about how I got hired at NBC5 in Dallas. It all started the May of 2010 when my sister was graduating from Baylor Law in Waco, Texas. It would be my first trip to Texas. I flew into DFW Airport in Dallas and drove down to Waco. I tell you all this to tell you that Texas was nice. After 4 days there, I was impressed at how nice the people were. Everyone was blessing me and I was being offered to-go waters and restaurants, which isn't something you're offered in Illinois. So, when I got back to Springfield, I wanted to see if there were any stations in that area that were hiring. I went to their individual websites and found that NBC5 was. This is where the story gets interesting. It was an anchor reporter position because I remember not being qualified for it just by the title. The reason being that I wasn't an anchor, and technically too, even though this isn't completely fair, I also technically wasn't what you call a straight reporter, meaning a reporter that worked with a photographer. I was a one-person band. Now, do one-person bands move up from their station to another station as a regular reporter? Yes, they do, and that's great. That just wasn't the path that I was on or how I was advocating for myself. So again, back to this whole anchor thing. I hadn't done that since college and definitely didn't have a professional tape for it. So, in terms of the title, it was a job I wasn't qualified for. But what I found interesting about that job is that when you looked at the qualifications, actually read them, they read like a reporter's second job. I think you only needed 3 or more years experience, and that experience could be at any TV station. And that is surprising. And that's because typically for a job in the top 20 markets or top 10 markets, they usually require you to have 5 or more years experience in what's called a medium-sized market. And medium size is defined by Nielsen. So that's a huge distinction here because a medium-sized market is going to be top 50 market, maybe top 60 if your tape is really good. So this automatically makes this a 3rd or 4th job to somebody when you take into account that that reporter is always signing probably 2-year contracts at a time. And that's the laddering in TV news. You start in your small market and you move up in 2-year increments until you eventually get to be, well, wherever it is that you want to be. This job was different because the qualifications were so relaxed. That reporting experience could be from anywhere, and you only needed 3 years of it, not 5. So all of this was a pleasant surprise. And even though I wasn't an anchor, I still applied for the job. No doubt they got hundreds of tapes for this job, and most of them probably from people who had far more experience than I had, and had that in markets far higher and better than the one I was in. So I sent them my cover letter telling them that I was a one-person band. I also made the news director a special version of my tape that definitely sent the message that indeed I was applying for a job that at least by title I wasn't qualified for because she's asking for a reporter and I'm pitching myself hard as a one-person band. And by pitching hard, I left it all on the field, communicating through my tape how much I love the job of one-person banding and love storytelling just as much. Basically, it sent the message that if they ever needed someone like me, that's what they would find me doing. And I really liked this strategy because some large markets were beginning to experiment with one-person bands. But there was no sign that this station actually was, which is one more reason why I wanted to send them a tape. Because maybe a year from now, or 2 years from now, they would be looking. And maybe if I made an impression, I might stand out. It's a big ask, it's a big fantasy, hopeful idea, but maybe. I wouldn't know unless I tried. So I sent my resume, cover letter, and my reel on DVD sometime in June or July of 2010. And the news director actually contacted me in late August asking about my contract situation. I told her I could be in her office next Tuesday. That was technically my Sunday. I told her that I would fly myself out to Dallas to see her. Now, usually during the interview process, there's a phone conversation that takes place as the first interview. And then, if a station is interested in meeting you in person, they'll fly you out and pay for your hotel for one night. But I thought to myself, this is market number 5. I didn't want to take any chances or have there be any time between the email and me actually talking to the news director for her to become uninterested. So I flew myself out, interviewed all day, and was offered the job a week later. It was all fast and incredibly surprising because it was all unexpected. That they would be interested and then actually want to hire me. So the next video in this module is a copy of the tape I sent them. And it follows the general rules of a resume tape. There's a live shot stand-up montage at the beginning, and it's followed by 3 packages. The first package is of a breaking news house fire. And now with this, keep in mind, I am applying for a one-person band / reporting position. And yet the first package on my tape, you never see me and you never hear my voice. Because to get that story on air, to make slot as breaking news, the fastest way was to make it a nap package. When it comes to the second package, I don't even remember what's on that tape, so you'll have to tell me. But the third package, that should be a light feature story called the Redneck Fishing Tournament out of Bath, Illinois. What's different about the tape is how I produced the actual montage. I used myself as a narrator to truly express my love for one-person banding. And as you watch it, please keep in mind that this format may turn off some news directors. Out of the 200 or more tapes that I sent out over the course of my almost 4 years at ABC News Channel 20, only the last 10 tapes were of this format. And I changed it up in the last 10 to see if it would even work. 2 news directors reached out. The first from Memphis, Market 50, and of course you know, Dallas. What's great is they both offered me jobs. And in business, you call that an incredible conversion rate because the 2 people who were leads actually followed through. The 2 out of 10 who were interested actually offered me a job. Here's something else interesting. 2 months after I started in Dallas, another station, Fox 8 in Cleveland, Ohio, reached out interested in hiring me. And here's that email. Then, in the fall of 2011, yes, a full year later, a 4th station reached out by phone. And I forget who it was because, again, this was all by phone, but they had looked me up. So they had seen my tape, they took my name, they Googled me, they knew I was in Dallas and still wanted to know if I was happy there and would rather come work for them. Now, of course, this is completely flattering and completely unexpected. Now, I was happy in Dallas, and even if I wasn't, I had signed a contract that kept me there for at least a year. That's what contracts are for. But again, I was very happy in Dallas and was beyond grateful to be able to have an opportunity that so few ever get. So I was staying put, but it was equally humbling that my tape was still having an effect. And that's why I'm telling you it's okay to start looking 9 months out, and also say it's actually okay to send tapes 6 months out if you really want the job that you're applying for. That's all because some news directors might take 6 months to look at you, while others might look at you immediately. The point is, you never know, and you never will. Will timing be off sometimes, and you can't take the job because you're still under contract, or the outs aren't right? Yeah, that's unfortunately going to happen. Are there times where the timing works out very well? Yes, that happens too. And with all of this, as I will say again, you only have to be right once. And of course, there's always the frustration that when a news director looks at you and doesn't like you, they never actually tell you that. There's no email saying they're going with somebody else. So a lot of the time, you're gonna send tapes out and of course, hear nothing back and have no idea where you stand. To review, out of the 10 tapes I sent, 4 ended up catching the eyes of news directors in strong markets, and 2 of them pretty much immediately. The other 2 would happen over time, and again, 2 of them actually offered me real jobs with real money. The other 2 might have, but of course, those stories weren't played to the end. So, In the end, this is all to tell you that it was worth the gamble of being myself, of sending these news directors tapes that were different from what they were usually being sent. And some of them told me that that is exactly what made me stand out. Also too, I delivered on what I promised on that tape. I brought the enthusiasm and creativity to my work in Dallas, winning the station an Emmy for video journalism the first year the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences debuted that Emmy. I also won the station a regional Murrow for news writing, which surprised all of us because that's really hard to do. So in the end, it's up to you what chances to take. But please know that I strongly encourage you to take all of them. Because regardless of how many no's, or rather how many news directors ignore you, you only have to be right once. As you're creating your own tape and you have questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'll see you in the next video.